I'm Brian Caulfield, and I'm the president of the Virginia Canals and Navigation Society. It's a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. You can find out more about us at www.vacanals.org.
I'm real comfortable in a crowd of 3 people, so I sort of stayed away from the festival for a long time because it was a lot of noise out on the river. I like the peace and the quiet and see the wildlife and all. But one year a fellow that ran a boat happened to run a Bateau, happened to see my canoe on top of my truck all the time, and he asked me if I would help him run his Bateau a couple days during the festival. Well, I told him I could do that. Well, when it came festival time, and I asked him what days he would like for me to help, and he said, well, all week. So I did, and 2 hours into the trip, I was his head boatman. 2 hours into the trip, and I was hooked. And you know, I've taken that philosophy on through. We invite people onto the boat for a couple days, and the next year we invite them back with a friend, and after that, you know, they're building their own boat.
For the first 100 years that Virginia was a colony, tobacco was grown in the tidewater. Ships could come to your backyard. So around the 1720s, it's basically, we have this bigger state, and only adventurers are up there in the Piedmont, and we need to expand. So around 1720s, 1730s, the big plantations started going west. Jefferson's father, Madison's father, and a lot of these people went to the Piedmont to build big plantations. So, and Reverend Robert Rose's father also. And how do you actually move the tobacco? We've got cheaper land because it's away from the coast. We got this great land. If you look at the redlands of Virginia, you'll find huge plantations were just dotted all over the redlands of Virginia. So they got the land, they can grow this tobacco. How do you move it? So Reverend Robert Rose, clearly they observed what the indigenous people did, and dugout canoes can move in shallow water, so they just came up with the idea of a double dugout canoe, this huge thing 40 feet long that could supposedly carry 7, possibly 8 tobacco hogsheads, and they were destroyed in the early 1700s. A lot of these were washed away in floods.
And the Bateau could be made out of smaller trees because
Right.
it was milled lumber.
Lumber boat, yeah.
And the dugout canoes required essentially one large tree.
Which were getting to be hard to come by then, because you needed trees right along the river. And a lot of the trees were cut down along the river because you could float them to places, and a lot of the plantations had riverfront property. So the Bateau fit a need. It's pretty common for people to say, you got those big old oars on the boat, and some people call them rudders. You know, oh, you got your rudder on the back of the boat there. Well, what is a rudder? A rudder doesn't work unless a boat's moving. What is an oar? An oar provides forward locomotion. So that's why these are called sweep, because they can move the boat without the boat actually having forward locomotion, and they can change the direction of the boat. It's a very mission-specific job they have. So if you imagine going down a shallow river full of rocks, you need to be able to move either end of the boat independently. The front of the boat can go left, the back of the boat can go right and swerve around a different rock that the front of the boat has already made it around. So you're basically steering the boat from two ends. When I discuss this with children, and I may be discussing it with children now, I don't know, I don't want to insult anybody, but you basically bring up a New York City fire truck and the tight streets in New York. You're not getting that 50-foot long hook and ladder truck around a 90-degree corner. It's just impossible. So the front goes around and the back of that fire truck stays straight a little bit longer. Now I'll follow behind you. You need to be able to steer at both ends. So what we have here is a modern representation of a tobacco hogshead, like I spoke of earlier. So approximately 40 inches at the belly and 48 inches tall. So this is set up to actually be pulled over the road by 2 beasts of burden. I think I said earlier 1, but 2 oxen would have pulled this. So 1,000 pounds of tobacco. It's pressed in here like a rock. It's incredible to see pictures of it, because whenever you get it to its final destination to get to Frida tobacco, you've got to break the barrel away from it. And the tobacco was pressed in there so hard, it just stands there still looking like it is a barrel. So 1,000 pounds in this barrel. So 2 beasts of burden, 2 oxen pulling it, and somebody standing behind it. In some cases it would have been 2 people, and you drive them, and 1 person would have been braking this. Would have been keeping it from running over your oxen. So fairly labor intensive to move 1,000 pounds of tobacco. But once you do move it and get it down to the river and get it to your freight boat, Bateaus need 2 people to move 7 tons of tobacco in less than a foot of water.
The Bateau was a riverboat. It was George Washington's dream to connect the eastern seaboard with central continental United States, you know, with the Ohio River Valley and the Mississippi drainage. So they surveyed that route. John Marshall surveyed it, I believe, 1814, 1812, and they actually established a route to build this canal. And they calculated, you know, the volume of water coming off the Alleghenies, and I think they estimated that there was enough water coming off there to move about 1,100 canal boats across the Allegheny Mountains per day, taking them from James River watershed across the Alleghenies into the Ohio River watershed. And that's where the canal boat came in. The Bateau was a river boat. That's a canal boat, a freight boat. It held approximately 70 tons. They were up to 90 feet long, 15 feet wide, and they drafted about 4 feet of water, whereas this Bateau in the river made it in about 12 inches of water. So it was a very different beast, but hauled a lot more cargo.
So the Canal Society publishes approximately 30 of these atlases on all the major rivers in Virginia and North Carolina. And I refer to it as a field guide. So a lot of people tend to get out on the river and they fish, and they don't realize that there's a lot of history to the river and historic structures. And it's been explained to me that there's a lot of railroad bridges on the James River. I've paddled underneath one of those railroad bridges. Well, if you look in here, you'll soon discover that you're going underneath aqueducts and culverts that were built by the James River and Kanawha Canal System, and for the canal system. And you'll also find ruins of improvements for navigations for bateaus. So there's basically 2 systems out there, and this will explain to you what that interesting pile of rocks is. Do you have any questions?
Are there specific commands? Is there a communication system between the front and the back?
Pay attention.